Well, hello, Glue Troopers. Max of Max's Models here. You may remember recently I mentioned that I could not find a styrene kit model of the standard J1 trainer or J series trainers. Well, I stumbled across another airplane that does not have any styrene kits made of it that I can find. That is an airplane known as the C-87. Now, the C-87 was a cargo version of the B-24 Liberator bomber, but it has some pretty distinct features. Now, the very first B-24s, the B-24A, which was shipped to the British as the LB-30, was significantly different than the ones we know mostly from World War II. It didn't have supercharged engines, and it had a shorter nose on it. Well, just turns out that as the war progressed and the B-24 got those wide cheeks on the cowlings because the intercooler and supercharger intakes, because they'd supercharged the engine at that point, obviously. And the airplane was, well, it's actually the most produced bomber or even American-made airplane, all variants, over 18,000 made. The Navy had their privateer version later on. But what I found interesting is that they made, I believe it was 287 of the C-87 cargo planes. Now, the Air Force's favorite cargo plane, of course, the trusty dusty C-47, C-46 Curtiss Commando, but the C-54 was really their preferred four-engine long-range heavy hauler, but they just couldn't make enough of them. So, as the war went on, with Consolidated aircraft being able to crank out massive numbers of B-24s that were not needed as much as they used to be, the Air Force, or Army Air Force, decided to see about having a cargo version made, because right now, air transport was really the big thing to support everything, the ground forces, the works. Flying stuff over the hump, you name it, they needed it. And the B-24 seemed like kind of a natural airplane to convert. Unlike the B-17 with the little wasp waist, the B-24 had a cavernous interior, an established record. All the training systems were set in place, all the logistics. So it seemed like a natural, or a conversion to a cargo plane. They did not need the superchargers on the cargo planes. They were denuded of all weapons and turrets, streamlined, lightened up. All the bombing gear, military hardware was pulled out of them, and they were just turned into a flying shell. And in the long run, strategically speaking, it worked. But, and there's always a but, the airplanes turned out to be, according to several people, including the famous writer Ernest K. Gann, who flew them as a air service pilot during the war, they were a real nightmare to fly. The B-24 had a pretty solid reputation, but the C-87, well, let's just say they didn't really think it through. One of the biggest problems was the airplane had very poor handling and could get out of hand pretty quick, partly because of less power because it didn't have the supercharged engines, but also when the airplane was used in its original role as a bomber, pretty much all the heavy payload was right under the wing. The center of gravity and everything worked out just fine because that's what it was designed for. In the nose of the airplane, you had some crew and some guns, and the tail, the same thing. But all of the heavy weight was in the middle of the plane. When you converted it into a cargo plane, you were stretching cargo throughout the length of the fuselage. This greatly expanded the center of gravity, and sometimes beyond where it should have been, which could make the airplane very squirrely to fly, and in some cases it was considered flat out uncontrollable. It had a high accident rate because of this. It also had a problem with nose gear failures, because as a bomber it was designed to take off full of fuel and ammo and bombs, very heavy, and go fly a mission. But by the time it came back from the mission, the bombs were gone and most of the fuel was burned, so it landed at a fairly light weight. Well, cargo planes burn off fuel, but all the cargo is still on them, and the nose gear wasn't really stressed for it, so they had a fair number of nose gear failures because they were landing heavy because they were a cargo plane. Now, that being said, the airplane still made a great contribution to the air cargo network that the Army Air Force had in place. It was very popular as a VIP transport because it was much lighter in that variant. A few of them even managed to find a little post-war work as basically VIP aircraft, and a few of them as freighters, a couple of them as tankers, but for the most part, they largely disappeared after the war, as did a lot of the B-24s. You look at these pictures in Kingman, Arizona. Right after the war, some of these planes were flown straight from the factory to the boneyard. A handful of B-24s were picked up for various things, and the Air Force held on to a few of them for testing. In fact, the last one, which I believe was the EZ B-24, was used for ice research in the, I believe it was Antarctic, both, I think. So the Air Force did hang on to a few of them, but by the mid-50s they were all gone. Only a handful were salvaged for civilian use. The Indian Air Force, the Chinese Air Force out of Taiwan, and a few others held on to some, but they had a pretty short post-war life. But luckily, a few of them managed to survive and still fly today, and I mean just a few. There aren't even that many in museums, and ironically, it was the most produced airplane made by the United States, with I believe over 19,000 made in all variants. Now, the Navy also had a version of the C-87 called the RY-3, which they put a straight tail on, and I think they may have lengthened the nose on it. But the point is that they didn't have that many, but I think they had 37 of them, something like that. And they flew around for a while, but again, they were retired before too long. But the point I'm getting at is that I could not find any kit models of the C-87. Now, there are possibly a couple of conversion sets, or you could just use PBY Catalina engines and cowlings, because I think the C-87 basically used the same engine and cowling as the PBY that was the Pratt & Whitney R1830. So you could kit bash one up pretty easily. You'd have to change the nose on it, and you can probably find a conversion set somewhere, or just kit bash it. But it wasn't the most significant airplane by any means, but I mean, there were a few hundred of them made, and no one seems to make a styrene kit of it. So again, there's an opportunity for someone. There is a one-off they made in 1944 called the Liberator Liner, and it was an attempt to make an airliner out of the B-24. And they did the same thing with the Lancaster. I think it was the Lancastrian. They're bombers. I mean, I understand. Well, actually, the British Avro York cargo plane and airliner was a derivative of the Lancaster. So, the Boeing 308 was a pressurized civilian version of the B-17, and it came out before the war. I think they only made 10 of them. So the idea of converting bombers into cargo planes and airliners was nothing new, and I get it. It makes sense at the time. It's a low-cost way to try and get yourself some cargo and passenger carrying capability, and they sort of did the job, but there's nothing like a purpose-built airplane like the DC-4/C-54. You're just not going to top those. They're optimized for the job. And in the case of the C-87, it was a particularly bad job of converting, just because the long center of gravity it wasn't designed for, and the weak nose wheel and a few other problems. Although they were faster than a lot of the cargo planes and could get up higher than them, so there was that. But I don't think they had any de-icing boots on them, so the Himalayas caused a lot of problems. It's a long story. Ernest K. Gann did not think much of that airplane. He's the author of a lot of aviation books, including Fate is the Hunter and The High and the Mighty. He was a career airline pilot who flew on contract to the military as a civilian. And you go out to the Wikipedia page, he badmouths the airplane pretty hard. And he would know. Of course, he's a writer. There might be some writer embellishment there. But I will tell you that I have heard a lot of bad things about the airplane. Even my dad, who served in the Air Force in the late 40s and early 50s, had talked about the airplane not being popular. And he probably worked with some guys who flew them. So the ones that are flying today, of course, are air show specialties. They're not flying at nearly those war weights and everything, and they're flown by very high-time pilots, not young rookie pilots like the military had to create so many of during the war. But C-87, not a kit out there that I can find. If you find one, let me know. All right, guys, you take care of yourselves. We'll talk at you later. As always, model on.